Yeah, and these are handwritten notes about this. One says Karolyi Bela is used to beat the gymnast on the head, being warned that she should give up this practice as it is very damaging and could lead to the loss of their intellectual capacity. Through his behavior, Coach Karolyi Bela has instilled an atmosphere of terror in the gymnastics team. Thus, none of the members of the team is allowed to talk to people outside the team to answer the questions they are asked other than in the presence of the coach, or to say that they are injured, any exception being punished with beating.
Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. TumbleTrack is having a sale. TumbleTrack's home holiday sale is on. Everything and anything that you need to have a happy, healthy, fun home obviously comes with gymnastics products inside your house. So if you need home training equipment, if you need a beam in the living room, if you need bars in the basement, if you need a tumbling strip for a hallway or your front yard, TumbleTrack has it all. Bars, mats, beams, air forces, little hotspot things so you can vault over the couch. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying that's what I did my entire youth. And so TumbleTrack can make it safer than what it was when we just used the jogging trampoline. Visit TumbleTrack at TUMBLTRAK, tumbletrack.com. Train smart. Today, we have a lot to tell you about. We have lots of signings. We have the Gymternet news. And infamous coach Bela Karolyi has died at the age of 82. We are going to dive into his legacy and some of the inaccuracies that continue to plague his obituaries. Let's get into it. It's November 18th, 2024, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. And this is our first show back since the election. And yes, I have a lot of things to say about that, but I'm saving it to the very end of the episode. So, people don't want to listen to it. They don't have to. It's at the end. Also, we are having a live show, the last one of the year in Portland, Oregon, on December 9th. Tickets on sale now at GymCastic.com, and you can come in person or you can get a virtual ticket and watch the show from anywhere. Check it out, GymCastic.com. Okay, let's start with the main headline is that at 82, Bela Karolyi has passed away. The Romanian press reported a couple months ago that he was suffering from Alzheimer's and some other ailments as well. And Bela Karolyi is super important in many ways to the legacy of gymnastics.
Significant. Yeah.
Significant, exactly. I think of it as kind of like the way you remember in Harry Potter when the sorting hat is put on Harry Potter's head, and it's like you can be great, but you can be in Slytherin and be great, or you can be in what's the other house? The Lions of Courage.
Gryffindor.
Gryffindor.
This is your area.
I know. I always get Gryffindor.
Your specialist subject. My God.
It's the only thing I can usually remember. Anyway,
yeah,
he was great in many ways in terms of the way that one can choose to be great. And the path he chose was not being a very good guy, but making a lot of champions. Bela Karolyi coached Nadia Comaneci, 2 all-around Olympic champions, Nadia Comaneci and Mary Lou Retton. And 1 world all-around champion. What were your first thoughts when you thought about him passing?
Well, it is the contradiction or counterpoint or juxtaposition of his legacy, which is he coached very medal successful athletes over multiple decades, multiple codes, all of that. If you're measuring success by medals and making teams, he's an incredibly successful coach. To me, his legacy, his actual legacy, is perpetuating a toxic and negative coaching style that permeated the entire world of gymnastics that it's still trying to get out from under. And that supersedes any medal accomplishments, is basically how I feel about it.
Yeah, I was talking to Cosmin Bogdan, who is the Romanian reporter who we worked with to get the secret police files on the Karolyis. And he said, in the end, he escaped justice. And that I thought was such a good way to put my general feelings about Bela. And I want to reiterate that, like, when I'm thinking about my initial thought, like, I felt compassion for his daughter and his grandkids and for Marta. Like, it is there, people have a right to have two things can be true at once. You can have opposite feelings. You can feel compassion and, like, I feel for them, and this is a very sad day for a lot of people. And I can also feel rage that he abused children for so long that it was documented for years and years. I mean, he was reported many, many times in the secret police files in Romania, and no one did anything about it. And then he came here and flourished off of about the crimes he committed against children in Romania. So both those things can be true. And I also, I thought a lot about people's reaction to gymnasts who posted some kind of homage to him, something about him passing away and their feelings. And some people were really angry with the athletes who posted something and had a good experience and talked about their good experience with him and how they affected him personally. And I feel like it's totally okay to have that. That was their personal experience. And I don't expect every single gymnast who's ever worked with him to go back and read the secret police files and the entire book written about it, right? Like, I don't expect that of them. And you can have a positive experience with someone who is also a criminal. Two things can be true at once. So I don't think, like, getting angry at gymnasts who had a good experience with him is really, they're not the ones that did it. Like, they're not responsible.
Everyone is different. Everyone's going to react to a situation differently. And Bela can coach two gymnasts exactly the same, and one's going to say, I was abused by Bela Karolyi, and the other's going to say, I had an amazing experience with him, and I made the Olympics, and it was,
And just to clarify, he's an alleged criminal. He was never convicted. That's the point of him getting away with it in Romania, but it was documented extensively that he physically beat children, starved them, many, many things, but he's not officially a criminal. But then also we have the way that his system, the system of abusive coaching already existed in the United States. Bela just popularized it when he got here, and a lot of people followed suit. And I think there's also the legacy of, did he create a culture, and also Marta, when she took over, that enabled Nasser and his crimes. And I think that's also definitely true. And that's another legacy of, the problem with just celebrating someone's wins and not acknowledging the full story of what it took. The crimes that were perpetrated and enabled by a system where people never feel safe and don't feel okay to come forward about anything. And we can't forget, in the Dateline interview, when he was asked if he ever hit gymnast, and he said, yeah, in Romania 50 years ago.
Yeah, it was not in America. Not in America,
yeah,
so it doesn't
I didn't
count.
hear. But he said yes. He said yes. That's a quote. He couched it with, well, that was totally acceptable at the time in Romania, but from reading all of the reports from the secret police, it was definitely not acceptable, as people were outraged, and a lot of parents, especially with how he was treating their athletes, and the gymnasts that have since come forward about their experience, like Eberly. So I just think it's really important to balance his legacy. And I think there have been some good news reports that have done that have acknowledged, like, here's what he accomplished. Here's also the path of destruction left behind.
And I think it is difficult. I'm sympathetic to those writing those articles because of the fact that he was never convicted of anything. There were never any, there's no factual thing that you can state, like, and also he was convicted of this, and this happened, and this happened. Factually, it's people's stories, which are factual, but it's not the same as, like, a legal proceeding that you can point to, which is, I had this horrible experience.
I
which
like
how do
that.
you it's hard to like how do you write like, oh, Bella coached Nadia Comaneci and Mary Lou Retton, and also he seemed like kind of a dick. Like that's not you can't write that's kind of what you want to write, but you can't write that as like an article.
Well, I feel like actually CNN and Carla Correa at New York Times did a really good job of covering both. They really said like
Uh-huh.
this person is famed for these things and also left a legacy of contributing to a culture of abuse. And but it's interesting how many of these of these articles and these obituaries that I've been reading over time. USA Gymnastics, by the way, actually did a very good job of just sticking to the facts. You know,
Yeah,
like
it's
in this,
really a really hard assignment. If you were like, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to write that because, like, what do you do? And everyone's gonna be pissed at you, obviously, for not acknowledging like Bella being awful.
yeah. And I was like, oh, they did the bare minimum, which was facts about what he did. End of story. Where, you know, if it was the Steve Penny days, I mean, Steve Penny basically
It
would
would
have like,
well, we had two NBC documentaries glowing about the Karolyis in 26 as recently as 2016,
yes.
which
I
have
mean,
been
Steve Penny.
quietly removed from the conversation because no one wants to look at them. But like, ooh.
Mm-hmm. Uh, yeah. So
Poor
there's a
Kristen
couple.
Bell. She
Oh,
narrated
Kristen
that
Bell.
documentary, and we're never going to forget about it, but we love her.
Oh my God. I mean, I wonder if she was like, you bastards. No one knew about this stuff before you asked me
No
to
one
do
told
this.
me. I was just narrating this documentary, and now it's like, yeah.
But she did make up for it by she hosted an award for a humanitarian award for a bunch of the gymnasts that appeared in the At the Heart of Gold documentary. And so she really like, I
And
mean,
like,
I think that was,
obviously not like she knew about it. Like, it's so not
yeah,
even remotely her fault in any way. I'm just laughing about it because it's like,
yeah.
oh, this is part of my IMDb now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's yeah, I hope that she was just like, excuse me, NBC, if you ever want me to work with you ever again, you will remove this. But there is a great rundown of it. I think it's Vampires at the Ranch on the balancebeamsituation.com. Is that
Oh,
the
that's a
one?
different one.
Oh, that's the one
There's
where they're in
also
the
there
sleigh.
too.
The
That's the
sleigh
love
riding one.
story of Bella and Marta that they
Oh,
made.
that's
An
right.
hour long love story of Bella and Marta, like documentary, and then going to Romania, which also has been quietly forgotten about.
Hmm. So
So
I want to,
it gets to the point of this lauding of Bella is
right.
not old. This is to very recent years of this is a gymnastics hero who coached champions and is the star of gymnastics. And so I do think it is important, even in death, to emphasize that's not the story, that's not the eternal story you want. That's not the legacy you want. You need to be honest about what actually happened, even in death when you're trying to be sensitive.
Yep.
You can't change your opinion about someone just because they died. You have to be honest about what actually happened, regardless of circumstance.
Yeah, especially someone that was in a position of power for so long in two different countries. And I think I think the facts, we have to look at Dominique Moceanu's memoir. We have to look at Little Girls in Pretty Boxes. We have the Nadia and the Secret Police book, which I have back here somewhere, but I don't see it. Oh, wait,
Oh,
hold
your
on.
props aren't ready.
I need props, you guys. Props are very important. Nadia and the Secret Police, a very important book that if you have not read it yet, you should definitely read it if you want the real story. I mean, the picture, Nadia Comaneci and the Secret Police, a Cold War escape. The picture on the front where she has many medals and no smile will give you an idea of why she refused to be coached by the Karolyis after 76. What I want to talk about a little bit is this book, which is called Feel No Fear by Bela Karolyi. The Power, Passion, and Politics of a Life in Gymnastics. This book, full of what we call them, inaccuracies.
Oh,
As is much of the life and times
thought you were
of
going to go harder than inaccuracies.
I mean, blatant lies are in there. his version of the story, blatant lies. So let's start with some of those, which persisted.
Oh,
There was
okay.
one of the stories that I read, and one of his obituaries had that he discovered Nadia on a playground.
Right.
You guys,
That didn't
he
happen.
did not discover Nadia. I think Nadia talks about that in her memoir, Letters to a Young Gymnast. It's important to read books, is what and gymnastics-history.com, where you can get the real stories as well and listen to this podcast. He didn't discover her on a playground. He didn't discover her in a classroom like the American version of the story tells. She was already doing gymnastics. She was already being coached by someone else. These things are also in the secret police files, is all confirmed in Project K, which we will link to in the show notes so you guys can refresh yourselves on the secret police documents. He also didn't defect to the United States and then work at the docks or whatever menial hard labor he said he did. He was logging. He was on the docks. He was a fisherman in the LA ports. Some nonsense like that. Like, he had a friend who put him up in their place somewhere in LA. This was also documented in Heavy Metals, which is a great podcast series. And it's heavy metals, as in metals around your neck, not hardcore metals. That's a great series that also documents a lot of the lies that he told, because he was really good at creating a story that people would get invested in. He had a friend that put him up, and then his very first job was coaching in Oklahoma at the International Gymnast magazine gym owned by Paul Zert and Bart Connor. That was their first job. So it's just so many lies were told. And then the persistent story that Nadia, he created Nadia, he made Nadia, and Nadia's success was only due to him. Nadia says in her book, Letters to a Young Gymnast, that the difference was that he never broke her. She never let him. She always kept something in reserve. And this, I think, is
very Nadia.
It's very Nadia.
She's always kept something in reserved. She's always got it together. She's not going to tell you every story about Bela.
Right. She's not going to do that. But she will. It was very interesting that her post on Facebook about his passing was, he had a big impact on my life.
Very true.
Which is very true. That is a factual statement from Nadia.
Yeah.
But
I think Bela had a big impact on every gymnast he coached. Some positive, some okay with it, even though it was negative, and some very negative.
Yep. And then we know from the secret police files that Nadia refused to train with him and Marta after the Montreal Games. She came back to Romania and said, absolutely not. I will not be trained with them again. And this is what kicked off the secret police investigation into the Karolyis. Obviously, they kept tabs on everybody, but Operation Olympia was specifically to find out what the hell did they do that the greatest athlete Romania has ever had and the most famous refuses to have anything to do with them, even though she wants to continue her career. So more on that in the show notes. You can read about that. The other thing I want to mention from Project K, and there's going to be a lot of glowing histories of Bela Karolyi, glowing histories, and I just think it's our job here.
I like that you call it an obituary review.
Wouldn't it be more fun if they were written like that?
If they were written like movie reviews, yeah.
Oh my god. I totally would love that too. Someone please do that for me a long time from now, knocking on wood. But not if the apocalypse comes, because we've already established that both of us are out of here. If the apocalypse comes, we don't want to stick around. That'll be the number one thing in the review. She got her wish. The apocalypse came and she was first to be destroyed by the aliens.
She was right next to the asteroid. Like, that's the dream.
I was like,
don't even know what's happening. Just die.
Take me.
Bye.
Yes. There are some things I want to share from the Project K document specifically, and some of the things that we found that are in the notes that the secret police took. So this first one talks about Bela specifically. Can you read this?
Yeah, and these are handwritten notes about this. One says Karolyi Bela is used to beat the gymnasts on the head, being warned that she should give up this practice as it is very damaging and could lead to the loss of their intellectual capacity. Through his behavior, Coach Karolyi Bela has instilled an atmosphere of terror in the gymnastics team. Thus, none of the members of the team is allowed to talk to people outside the team to answer the questions they are asked other than in the presence of the coach or to say that they are injured, any exception being punished with beating. Relying on the fact that the athletes need to have a body weight suitable to compete, he applies them an incorrect diet based on his own opinion without taking into account the recommendation of those who are competent on the matter, which leads to injuries and the presentation of athletes at the competition in conditions below their potential. Which is very interesting coming from the 1970s, because we often hear like, oh, we didn't know back then. We just didn't know about professional athlete diet and things like that. And you're seeing in these documents in Romania in the 1970s that they're like, that's not sufficient.
Yep. And there's notes in the secret police files that we'll share from the medical staff. I mean, this is them saying this is not acceptable and this is what's happening.
And then in June 1970, and this is from the secret police files.
This is from the secret police files. Yeah, from the Romanian secret police files. The informant in this case is a very prominent member of the gymnastics coaching staff. And it is a report about an athlete who was also a very prominent elite gymnast from Romania. And this is what the report said. Trigger warning coming up. We're going to talk about sexual assault. We have in this, I just want you guys to know, redacted the names and some dates to protect the identities of the alleged victim. This is a document translation. Copy of note to Direction 1, Colonel Lazar Ion. So it says, in the afternoon of June 21st, current year, the source was visited at his home by Gymnast. I'm just going to call her Gymnast. While the source was in the kitchen, Gymnast told the source's wife that one of the reasons why she's refusing to work with Coach Bela Karolyi is that he would have attempted to take advantage of her. Thus, she recounted that in fall, leaving for another country with Bela to participate in a demonstration competition one evening, Bela went into her room where he started making her love scenes, kissing her on the mouth and grabbing her in his arms. Gymnast claims she acted against these gestures, trying to avoid him sitting down on the bed underneath the blanket. However, Bela continued to introduce his hand underneath the blanket and to force her to have intercourse with him. Only when she told him that if he did not leave the room, she would make noise, then he left her alone and left. Gymnast asked the source's wife not to tell anyone about this incident she had with Bela Karolyi. What follows is a note about the informer dated the following year in May. And it says, the data presented by the source are confirmed with those obtained through special means where Gymnast recounted the same aspects to another gymnast's mother. To explain the context here, part of this is an informant recounting what happened in their own house with their wife. The second part is a note about this being confirmed by some means, maybe recording or another informant, in someone else's house, another gymnast's house, later the following year. We recorded this episode yesterday, but I'm cutting in now because I want to add more explanation. Specifically, why are we sharing this now? And I want to explain some things first. We don't know a lot about what happened during Bela's years in Romania. The Securitate, that's the secret police documents that we obtained, they paint a really brutal portrait of Bela that we've discussed here, and we're going to discuss a little more in this episode, and we've discussed at length in the podcast we did about the secret police reports. There were many allegations of physical abuse lodged by many parents and other coaches and medical professionals. We don't know the veracity of every allegation in the secret police documents, so it's important to note that this document was recorded in the secret police files but has not been substantiated. However, this sexual abuse allegation was reported after a young teenager, less than half Bela's age, confided in two adults on 2 separate occasions. We are mentioning this allegation because, although it's the only one of its kind that we found in the secret police reports, it's an example of one of the many alleged abuses that ultimately had no impact on Bela Karolyi's career. On the contrary, his time in Romania only bolstered his coaching credibility when he came to the United States. Bela was a person of great prestige and influence, whose actions and behavior were not only shielded from scrutiny during his lifetime, but also gave permission for others to emulate him in ways that led to devastating consequences. The absence of accountability combined with the societal reverence for Bela, think of all the times that NBC put him on TV, all the times USA Gymnastics used him as a PR voice, it created an environment where his coaching style was normalized. This perpetuated a culture of abuse that ultimately enabled Larry Nassar's crimes. That became the largest sexual abuse scandal in American sports history, and is a tragedy that harmed countless individuals and undermined trust in institutions, all the way up to the FBI, an institution designed to protect the vulnerable. The point of us bringing up this allegation in the secret police documents is not necessarily the allegation itself. The point is that it is by far the most serious allegation against him, and it avoided scrutiny and due process for everyone involved. By acknowledging and examining this allegation, we can normalize accountability, ensuring that no individual, no matter how esteemed, is beyond the reach of justice and scrutiny. It is about prioritizing the child athlete over preserving the myth of Bela Karolyi. Now that I've explained that, I'm going to go back to my conversation with Spencer. There it is. It's just another example of things that were swept under the rug. Did that surprise you when we first found this?
You mean today when I first learned of it, or just now? No, because nothing surprises me in gymnastics, especially in the 70s. Like, you could say the most horrible things happened, and I'll be like, yeah, because that's happened. The most horrible things have happened. And we've had to be like, okay, that's what happened. We accept that that's the fact of what happened, and we try to process that, try to deal with it, try to move on. So yeah, no, nothing you can say that happened in gymnastics will ever surprise me.
I was thinking about how, you rarely get angry on this show. Normally that's just
That's
my
your
natural
yeah.
state of being.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about the bronze medal scandal at the Paris Olympics and the reaction and statement from the president of the FIG, who said it was a tragedy, and our reaction, and your reaction especially, was one of the times when I felt like you were actually pissed at hearing someone in gymnastics using the word tragedy so flippantly to talk about something so insignificant in terms of the crimes against humanity that have been perpetrated under the name of gymnastics for 80 years.
Yeah, and there are so many tragedies in gymnastics, and a medal, the wording of a medal is never one of them.
And things like this help put it into perspective. Speaking of the reporters, I think did a good job in their stories about their obituaries about Bela Karolyi, was CNN's Holly Van, who I was like, who's this Holly Van? Oh, sorry, Van. That's a Y. Thanks. Holly Yan, who I did have to look her up. I was like, who's this? She's not on my radar of crack reporters who know what they're talking about with gymnastics. I must add her. So this is a quote from her CNN story, which I forgot about this story. But let's talk about Mary Lou Retton, his second, I'm not going to say the second Olympic all-around champion who was briefly coached for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, by Bela and Marta Karolyi.
Yeah, his gymnast language is very Bela legacy. And
I need to...
the way you don't want, like, it's just habit, and you don't want to say, like, you don't possess, you're as a coach, you don't possess the gymnast. They're the one doing it. They're the one, they have autonomy and all of that. But Holly Gann's article said, even before the court action, some gymnasts who had reached the pinnacle of their sport recalled Bela Karolyi pushing them to keep working out through injury. Rhett said she had a broken finger during a workout when Karolyi ordered her to perform her uneven bar routine. She recalled to Texas Monthly. But the pain was immense, and Retton fell and landed on her chin. I started bleeding from the mouth, and as much as I tried not to, I started to cry, Retton told the publication. And Bela just got really mad at me. He said, get back on the bar. I was just gushing blood. I tried to get back on the bar. I couldn't do it. Okay, so he said, okay, then get out of the gym. You're through. It's a good example of the coaching we're talking about. When we talk about the toxic and negative coaching and how that permeated world gymnastics and still is present today, this is a great example of exactly what we're talking about.
And I was talking to a friend today about the state of the culture of gymnastics. And I was like, there's been so much progress. Mm-hmm. And he was like, there's still so much work to do. And I was like, yes. I mean, part of being at the Olympics was being so elated at the way that the culture of USA gymnastics at the elite level has changed in a lot of ways, because Simone has more power, and many of the athletes have more power than USA Gymnastics does, and so the power dynamic has shifted. But on the other hand, seeing what was happening with other countries and how athletes were treated and how many rules were broken just made me be like, oh my God, there's just like, this is a constant fight. And this is part of why we started the podcast. It's part of why we do this is, there will always be people who blow smoke because of accolades. And it's our job to tell the full truth of how those medals and accolades were won. And this is the truth of it. So again, we'll have a link up to the Project K files, which are all about, that's our project looking into the history of the Karolyis, the secret police files. And those are available in the show notes. And there's more to that. Also, if you haven't read Nadia and the Secret Police, this is like the definitive guide to the secret police files by Sejurel Olaru, who is incredibly accomplished, used to be like Assistant Secretary of State in Romania, basically. Like, he knows what he's doing, very well respected, and did a great job with the book. This is my time to switch to something, a happier topic.
Ah, lovely.
Let us discuss signing day.
Yes.
The time
we had NCAA signing day. Fun times. Big switch. Big tonal switch happening around here.
Massive tonal switch. We're going to talk about signing day. But before we talk about signing day, I do want to let you guys know about something very exciting that has happened, that is happening. And that is, if you love GymCastic and you want to see us do the podcast live, either in person or with a virtual ticket, and if you want to hear stories from a gymnast that you won't ever hear told in public, this is for you.
You can come see us in person or with a virtual ticket at our live show in Portland, Oregon. I'm saying it like I'm going to be there, which I am not.
Spencer's not
Portland,
allowed
Oregon,
to go.
Monday, it's too much compromised immune system. This is Monday, December 9th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific at Show Bar in Revolution Hall. Portlanders, I assume you know where that is.
Everybody knows.
Everything.
Very famous.
Burnside. We have a very special badass Olympian guest, Mohini Bardwaj, who I'm sure has stories upon stories upon stories to tell. You guys, she had a whole career at UCLA before she made an Olympic team, and there's so much. Mohini is the first U.S. gymnast to graduate from college and then make the U.S. Olympic team. Without dump trucks full of name, image, and likeness money, she was selling pizzas, and then the Pam Anderson thing happened, and NBC lost its mind. She would break rules as a UCLA gymnast and leave a message on Miss Val's voicemail asking when she should arrive to run, which is great. I love that. Mohini, of course, made the 2004 Olympic team, which won silver. They're going to discuss all of the things, including what she's been up to since. No one can wait. We're all super excited. One of the gymnasts you most want to pick their brain of all the US elites I think there's ever been, I would say.
Because like very much like Mohini's one of those people like she's just like, yeah, the rules are stupid. They don't really apply. I'm great, so I'm just going to be great. And then, yeah, if you want to punish me, that's fine. I'll do whatever I need to punish, but I'm just going to live my life the way I want to. And
Hi, Miss
I
Val.
love that about her.
When do I need to show up for my punishment? But I'm still going to do what I'm going to do.
Yes. And so we'll get into all of that stuff. Oh my God. And all the stuff with Marta, because she's one of the people that stood up to her and all those stories, much like Alicia Sacramone stories that she told in our live show with her. So anyway, live shows are so fun, you guys. We love them. They are so fun. And if you can't make it in person, that's okay, because the virtual audience, you can interact with each other. There's like a whole chat. You can talk to each other, and you can even ask Mo questions live during the show. So we have a Q&A, and you with a virtual ticket can do that too. And if you can't be there live to watch, you can watch the replay later, but you can only buy tickets before the show. They're not on sale after it happens. So club members, when you log in for purchase, your tickets will reveal a discount code to you, because obviously Club Gym members always get a discount first. Season pass holders, your virtual ticket has already been emailed to you. If you didn't receive it, let us know. Customer service at gymcastic.com. And if you're a season pass holder and you want to attend, be sure to check your email for the promo code to upgrade your ticket to in person. If you have a virtual ticket but you want to come in person, you want to drive from Seattle, you want to drive from Yakima or Idaho or wherever you are, Vancouver, come down to Portland, hang out. We would love it. So, and if you live in Portland, your only job is to come to the show with 10 friends. That's all we ask. Yeah, you guys can do it. I believe in you. I know we pick places with a lot of listeners to have our live shows, so I know you guys are there. So we would love to see a big audience. And I'm so excited to be at Revolution Hall, because it's like punk rock famous, and it's also by Burnside, which is skateboarding famous. So it's all of my three worlds are colliding. If it also they had wrestling there. I mean, I have wrestled in Portland, just so you know.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay, tickets are on sale now, gymcastic.com. This holiday season, I want to give the gift to my loved ones that makes them feel special and unique, just like the relationship we share. That's why I'm giving everyone I care about StoryWorth. If you guys listen to Behind the Scenes, you know the crazy stories we found out about the Italian relatives and what they were doing in the basement, running from the police. And this is the kind of story you get with StoryWorth. Here's how it works. Each week, StoryWorth emails your loved ones a thought-provoking question that you help pick. Things like, what's the bravest thing you ever did? What's the farthest you've ever traveled? How'd you used to get to school every day? Which is how I found out, like, my mom, they had 2 horses and a carriage, literally. I know this, she wasn't born in the 1800s either, but these are the stories I got. StoryWorth makes the writing process a breeze. All your loved one needs to do is respond to an email with a story. Long or short, it doesn't matter. You'll be emailed a copy of your loved one's responses that they've submitted over the course of the year. After the year of fun, StoryWorth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. I got this for my mom, and we are getting multiple copies of her book because she's kind of considering this. Of course, obviously. Like, she's like really taking this as like, I'm writing a memoir sort of that will be passed on to the granddaughters, the grandnieces. Obviously, I'll be reading it to Obi-Wan, so he knows the full history of his Gammy, as she likes to be called by our cat. Families love StoryWorth. This is why it has more than 35,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago.
With StoryWorth, you're giving those you love most a thoughtful and personal gift from the heart, and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Go to storyworth.com/GymCastic and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/GymCastic to save $10 on your first purchase.
Okay, so let us discuss signing day.
Yes. Which still exists, even though the National Letter of Intent does not exist anymore. But you still have to sign your scholarship, get your scholarship money, having a little announcement, have a little party, have a cake. It's all great. Everyone's having a wonderful time. We're going to go through a couple of the most significant signings and the things we're most interested in seeing in the future for the future of college teams. Most of these people have already verbal 20,000 years ago, so these weren't surprises, but now they're official, so you can talk about them and be excited about them, and it's very interesting. So one of the things, Charlotte Booth, who we know, she was a US elite, exciting bars, going for risk and difficulty. Then she switched her FIG license to Great Britain, was an alternate on the Olympic team. She's going to Auburn, and I think I want to know what we make of this, because this year, starting this season, they have Caitlin Jong, who we've talked about. She was a junior national champion in elite. Marissa Neal from Gage, who's done elite the last couple of years. And then the next year they'll have Charlotte Booth. And it's this very interesting, the elites who weren't necessarily in the Olympic conversation, hard, push, but were elites. So certainly have more than the skill set necessary to compete in college, and how that's going to influence Auburn's results. Because Auburn had that one really good year with Suni and Darion where they finished fourth. But other than that, the results have not lived up. I think the recent results have not lived up to the quality of the roster.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited about this. I think that these are the elites that you want in a way, because you want the elites who have the experience, that the skills are all easy for them. Like, they've been doing this gymnastics since probably grade school, so it's easy for them, but they don't have the mileage on their bodies necessarily that an Olympian will have. And that can be so helpful in college, because they'll actually be able to make it through, 14 meets.
Stay healthy enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of, I think, like how Oklahoma got to where they are now. And then we have the Nordics. The Nords.
Okay, Tanya
That's what
Paulson.
we're officially calling them, right?
The Nords. Tanya Paulson to Cal from Sweden. Jennifer Williams from Sweden to Stanford. Both going to NorCal. Do you feel like that's the Sweden of the United States?
Now it is. I mean, it's Minnesota and Wisconsin, but now it is.
Yeah, I mean, historically.
Yes, historically, but now it has shifted to it is the Bay Area is now. I think it's interesting they chose, these are two, top tier academically schools, science and engineering schools, and it's interesting to see what they want to do and why they chose those schools specifically. But also their gymnastics fits so well.
Very well.
Especially
I'm also with international athletes, I'm now are they do I want to go to America? And I'm it's NorCal, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be in the Bay Area. It doesn't count as America.
It doesn't.
It actually counts as Scandinavia.
I feel like there's 3 states that you're still safe in if you come to the United States, and California is one of them, especially the Bay Area.
A legitimate conversation and a legitimate concern for international athletes being do I want to come to the United States at this point?
Yep. Honestly, and we're going to talk more about that at the close of the show. But yeah,
that's as political as I'm going to get.
Right. But it is a very serious. I've been thinking about this a lot, especially with all of the there's so many British gymnasts. We're 12 British gymnasts in NCAA now. And I'm very interested also if they're it's also interesting just the level of awareness about laws and how the laws are different vary from country to country. It depends if this is something that's on your radar or it's on your parents' radar, is how are the laws of this state or the federal laws going to affect you specifically as a woman and as an
human,
immigrant and human as you come to the United States, versus people that are just wait, all the states have totally different laws? Wait, I don't know. I didn't even know that.
It's such a good country. It's so well organized.
Yeah. Florida.
Yes. So this was a surprise to me, actually. I hadn't heard about this, but Lai Bui from Gage is going to Florida. And I think that's a solid pickup for any school, and exciting.
Yeah.
And it helps, I think, round out Florida in their class in the future in terms of her strengths versus everyone else that they're going to have. And
Because her
when you have to look forward to a post Leanne Wong world, which no one wants to have to look forward to.
So you mean that a bars and beam or a double
Yeah.
Arabians and bars? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that I think she complements well. And I think we're seeing that from a lot of schools, and they, do that very intentionally. They try to complement, where are our weaknesses? Where are we strong? We're going to recruit.
Yeah.
Khalees Wolford to Georgia. She was elite, originally verbal to Clemson, and then switched to Georgia. And that got us talking about the Cecile factor and how many people are
Yes.
going to switch their commitments to Georgia, especially if you're like still aspiring to do elite. You've got Cecile there. She knows what she's doing in that department.
Yep. Exactly. I'm interested to see who else goes. And in our later political conversation, I want to talk about Clemson as well. Also, when someone verbals, it doesn't mean anything, just so you know.
Right.
So like you can get excited, but they haven't signed anything. I mean, it's like the team is now planning, the apparatus is now planning for how many scholarships they have. And like, if there is actually, when the cap comes on the teams, that counts for planning purposes, but it doesn't actually mean it's not a contract.
No, you can verbal wherever you want and then not do it, and it's fine. And, very interesting. LSU's signing class, which I want to talk about because I think it's very savvy. I think it's a smart class for LSU because it is very, very good level 10s, not elite stars. And that I think is what LSU really needs, because they could, with what they have to offer in terms of name, image, and likeness, they could just be like, I want all the elites, and just have everyone. Just sign everyone and get everyone, and then they all get injured. And I think we're already seeing that. Like, we have Zoe Miller learning that she had a much more serious injury. Connor got injured during the Olympic trials process. We're seeing elites with major injuries for LSU, and they have the depth to withstand that. That's not. There's so many great gymnasts on that roster that it's not a deal breaker for LSU by any means, but having those level 10s then come in to bolster this and be like, I can get 9-9s and I'm healthy enough to compete every week is extremely important for that roster, even if they're not names that you recognize. Yep. And I would say Oklahoma has done the same thing in this year's class, but that's very Oklahoma. That's not a new thing for Oklahoma. They're like, we're going to get the top level 10s and we can coach them into getting 10s.
Yep.
And that's our strategy. And you can have your elites and fine.
And LSU also, they already have all the elites. And secondly, the year before they won, they had a year where it was a shock. They made it to out of regionals very controversially. I mean, they barely had enough people to compete because there were so many injuries. And like many teams have this, but I think like healthy level 10s are the key to, or level 9s that can do a 10 vault. Are the key.
No, not level 9s. Level 9s will go to D3 schools.
Level 9s who can stick a 1.5 or a double. I don't know. They're level 8.
They're level 10s then.
I don't know if you're allowed to. I don't know if there's a cap. Which there's a cap on difficulty for vault up to a certain level, but I can't remember what it is now. But I mean,
you should buy the level 10 quota points, and who wants to do that?
God, I know. That money. This is why I just say it out loud, and then a judge will
some judge will correct you.
Yeah. And I'll be like, thanks, you guys, because I can't be bothered to buy that thing. Okay, so I'm very excited about the Michigan class.
Yes, a really important class for Michigan because we're very worried about this season, you guys. No more Sierra Brooks, no more Gabby Wilson, no more Naomi Morrison. After last year, when they lost Wojcik in high school, I'm like, what is the team? What are we doing? They brought in a lot of gymnasts, some transfers, trying to bolster that roster, but we're concerned about the results in 2025. For 2026, they've signed Miley Liu and Ashley Sullivan, which I think is another good example of complementary athletes. Miley Liu, so beautiful on bars, so great on beam, so fun to watch. Ashley Sullivan, so solid, good difficulty, consistent. When she's healthy, you've got those four really solid events that you can get. And I think that's very encouraging for Michigan.
Yeah. And Miley Lou, I just love Miley Lou. I just love her form and her style. I just love it. So I'm excited for her to go there and see. I just really want Michigan to get a choreographer. Like if you're having a rebuilding year, I'm putting that in quotes, is like when everyone's injured or is graduating, you haven't built up, yet. This is the time to wow people with choreography, which now you can have 4 paid coaches. So have a full-time choreographer like UCLA does, like Florida does. That's what I'm saying.
We have Lilia Kosman from the Romanian team who's going to Michigan State. This is very exciting.
Yes. I love her. So she's Romanian American, and she was on she's been on the world teams, the qualified Olympics. She's on the Paris team. And has a great experience, and she has great experience hitting under extreme pressure, and she has performance quality, which is exactly what Michigan State is now known for. Michigan State is the new that's a team that was always known for performance quality. UCLA, it's Michigan State now.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma, it's Michigan State. They are in the absolute apex. They are in that circle of we can perform. The whole team performs. They're in. We need a name for that circle. It's not a circle of trust. The circle of sparkles. The Broadway circle. The circle of the stage. They're in the stage group.
They're on the stage. Yeah.
They're on the stage and they know it. So I'm thrilled to see what the Michigan State team can, how she molds in with that, because I think she's a perfect fit and this is super smart. And I hope she brings more Romanians into NCAA gymnastics.
Oh, it would be great.
It's my dream, especially, the one who taught herself English by watching anime, current floor bronze medalist. That's who I would love.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anna Barbosu. It's my dream. I mean, if you teach yourself English, this is the kind of person you want on your college team. Like, you guys are, annoyed with school. She taught herself English on her own. I mean, I'm just so impressed with her. Anyway.
Confirmation of Nola Matthews and Tiana Sumanasakura to UCLA. I think both excellent stylistic fits, excellent cultural fits for that team. UCLA's very interesting position, as they always are. Just like beautiful question, just a roster full of beautiful question marks, which is just like what UCLA does. Because this year's roster, Shea's back. Shea Campbell is back. I think that's really important for them. Jordan Childs, we think, is back. Gonna be back.
Yeah, she said she's back. I mean, she's been posting about it. Back. How often will she be in California? Nobody knows. But she has
back so many opportunities.
She's always flying somewhere, and then
so they have,
shows up.
It's a strong team, but always, kind of a question mark. I really like Nola Matthews and Tiana Sumanasakura to UCLA. I think Nola in particular is going to just completely thrive on floor and in the performance quality as a college gymnast. At many different schools, I think she would thrive, but I think UCLA is a great fit there for her. Yeah. And we're seeing multiple strong gymnasts, big scores, multiple events that UCLA needs to bolster that when they're looking at, Shea is in her last year. Who knows what opportunities Jordan Childs will have in the future? You always have to account for that because she's like famous now or something. So, also, what
Mars
other
is still there? Go ahead.
Mars is still there. She's like
Moors. Moors.
But you were like, Mars is still there, and I was like, that's got to be her 9th season. This is her 9th year of eligibility if she's still there. Yes, Brooklyn Moores.
Oh,
another one. Another in the beautiful question mark category, because you're like, you can do a perfect routine, but also,
is your back attached? Yeah. Do you have vertebrae? The one thing I want to mention about Jordan Childs is, I had permission to share this story from Jordan, is that she went to vote because, as I predicted, Everyone could give me a round of applause wherever you are, getting coffee, doing the dishes, at work, listening. When
Sure.
I said Simone's going to do the tour, and then the day after the tour, and she's going to announce that announce her commitment to Kamala Harris for president, and that's when it's going to happen, and then everyone's going to vote, and that's exactly what she did. And then
And it worked great.
It worked out
We nailed
perfect.
it.
And then she is super pissed that expressed on the social medias that she is super, super angry with the outcome of the election. And then she gave President Biden specific instructions on to make something shake, love the women of Texas. So hopefully he is doing exactly that, because Simone has given directions, and obviously he should now follow them explicitly. But the reason that I'm talking about this is that Jordan Childs went to vote because she got off tour, went back home to Texas, and went to vote, showed up to vote, and she was not on the voter rolls. And the person at the polls told her, I'm not supposed to say this, but this is happening to a ton of people have showed up today who are sure that they're registered to vote, who know they registered to vote, and they're not listed here. So Jordan, so then the woman there gave her instructions on exactly what to do. And so then she had to spend the rest of the afternoon going, driving from place to place, doing paperwork to get herself back on the voter registration list, and so she was able to vote. And I think this is one of the reasons on the GymCastic website for years now, we have had a link on our side navigation where you can register to vote and check your voter registration, because this is happening a lot of places, that people think they're registered to vote and they show up that they are not. And there can be legitimate reasons for this. But she is one of the many people that this has happened to over the last, every election cycle this happens. So I just want to share that this is a person who represented the United States at the Olympic Games, represented the United States, registered to vote, not listed, couldn't vote when she went to go vote. She was purged from the rolls and had to jump through a bunch of hoops. And luckily she had the time that day and the willingness to stick with itness to do it. Imagine if she was someone that was elderly, couldn't get there, couldn't do all of these things and accomplish them in one day. So anyway, that happened in Texas.
I also wanted to mention Nora Christian to Utah, because I'm excited about that. Because I always love watching her. I always talk about watching her in Elite the last couple of years, because she's going to go for it. She's going to go for that difficulty, and she might not hit it, but she's going to go for it, and it's going to be fun to watch and exciting. And I hope that we see that continue at Utah, and that's not sort of reined in. Yeah. I want to see it. I want to see that difficulty.
Let's talk about the Gym Internet news. You guys, something so fantastic has happened. If you weren't already aware, Shang Chun-sung, who was an elite gymnast, Olympian, 2024
has continued competing elite for China for a number of years after being, not on teams anymore. She's continued to compete at national championships too.
Yep. She switched over to parkour recently, and it's been very interesting to watch her style, because in my uneducated parkour opinion, her style is very gymnastics on the street and not parkour style, but it's so fun to watch because she does double backs onto the sidewalk, and it's just full crazy double flipping difficulty off a rail onto a sidewalk. Anyway, she is now the 2024 World Women's Freestyle Champion in parkour. Shang Chun-sung, everybody. Super stoked for her. Also, an American.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was.
You go.
It's going great. I was going to say fulfilling several of your mantras. Gymnastics is for grown-ass women, and life doesn't end with artistic gymnastics, or whatever.
Yes.
Charlotte Drury said.
For Charlotte Drury. who is one of, if you guys don't know who Charlotte Drury is, she is an Olympian in the United States because she's an Olympic alternate. And she was part of the 3 that all started gymnastics together and all went on to be Olympians, which is she, Michaela Maroney, and Kyla Ross all started training in the same training group at the same gym as kids and were picked to be in like the, pre-elite, pre-team classes, and all went on to be Olympians. And Charlotte went on to be an Olympian in the United States. She's considered an Olympian in trampoline, and that was one Olympic cycle. She was the person and was totally going to go for sure, and then got injured at her very last competition for was that 2021 or was that Rio? That was Rio.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then 2021, she was the alternate, controversially the alternate. And she also happens to be in a relationship, or I should say that Olympic gold medalist and NBC commentator Lori Hernandez is lucky
you paused,
enough.
and I was like, "Are you missing the name Lori Hernandez from your vocabulary right now?"
Lori Hernandez is lucky enough to be her girlfriend. So she, in her interview long ago, she was like, I want everybody to know that life doesn't start after artistic gymnastics. You can do parkour, you can do adult gymnastics, you can do tumbling, you can do trampoline, diving, so many things. Additionally, American Audrey Johnson won bronze, and she also got a silver in the speed category. I love watching speed because that's what I felt like parkour came from, was like, how fast can you traverse? What's the most efficient way you can traverse obstacles, like a great video game like Prince of Persia, or I don't know anyone's as good as Prince of Persia, but that's the best gymnastics. Yeah, it's the best gymnastics video game. Assassin's Creed. Also, okay, do you remember that show Special Forces that Nastia did?
Absolutely
Where they yell
not.
at you like you're in the military? So Jordan Weaver is going to be participating in season 3 of Special Forces.
Jordan, are you busy? Do you
It's
have
on
a team
Fox.
to coach?
Well, they filmed it over the summer or something.
Don't you have recruiting to do? She has Kyla for that, and Chris.
Kyla just shows up and smiles, and people are like, "Sign me!"
Immediately to Arkansas.
So I'm excited to watch her on there. It was interesting to watch.
Are you gonna watch?
Of course, I'm not gonna watch. I'm gonna watch the highlight. I'm just gonna fast forward to just the parts Jordan's in. I don't
I'm
care.
not gonna watch those other people. Yeah.
No, but it was interesting that Nastia left because she was like, I have worked really hard not to have these kind of voices in my head that you guys are yelling at me. And to basically preserve the healthy mental space for herself, was like, I don't need this in my head. I don't need people yelling at me the things that I've worked to get out of my head. And so I'm interested to see what Jordan thinks of her. Thinks of it, not her.
Jordan, what do you think of Nastia? Write a 5-paragraph essay on what you think of Nastia.
Yeah, I think Jordan will obviously win.
Jordan wins everything.
Yeah, she'll obviously win. And she'll just be like...
Have you seen her on the sidelines of meets recently? She could punch a wall down.
And also she'll be like, yeah, you can yell all you want. I learned to block that out at age 9. Like, I'll just be here doing my crossing a bridge or whatever nonsense you guys have tried to make hard for me. Simone and Jordan have been awarded the USOPC Jack Kelly Fair Play Award, which recognizes excellent sportsmanship. And they won this for their bowing down to the new Olympic champion Andrade on the podium in Paris, which should be the most iconic moment in all of sports. Historic. It's
so beautiful. Montage ready for like the fair play of, the glory of sport. How all those commercials are always like someone picking up a runner who's fallen or something. It's ready for that. Next Olympics, it's going to be the whole thing.
Yes, it is.
And Simone's either going to be competing or lighting the torch at the end.
There's going to be so many commercials with that slow motion zoom in on the photo of it. Yeah. Simone Biles' Rising, the documentary on Netflix, has won 2 Critics' Choice Awards. I told Katie, the director, when she was on, didn't I tell you you're going to have to get an outfit, Katie, because you're going to win an award. Be ready. And sure enough, Katie, the director, has won, and she took her, Jessica, her director of photography, who's excellent, to those awards as well. I don't know if it's like both were awarded as Best Sports Documentary and Best Limited Documentary Series. So they were both at the awards, and I'm stoked. So listen to our 2 interviews with Katie. We have one for the first Simone documentary, the one that is on Facebook that's called Simone versus Herself, aptly named. And then this one, Simone Biles Rising, there's an interview about this as well. 2 parts.
We have 2 about
Katie.
2 interviews with Katie. And they're like, definitely listen to them because she's such a prepared and excellent guest. And it's such a joy to talk to her. And it's just like, oh, I'll even show up for an interview if Katie's there.
She's the one. Only person you show up for.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah, but Kate, it's interesting too because Katie listens. She's a regular listener to the show. Like, she's a gymnastics person, so she listens to the show and she makes her own notes about the whatever we say about the documentary, and then she comes and she's like, "Oh, you guys wanted to know why we chose or why we did the angle or what we saw here, or if," and then we just have to sit there and enjoy her presence, and she answers all the questions. Oh, swimsuit season. So we already got Livy Dunn last year, this year, or sometime.
Happy November. It's swimsuit season.
In the Sports Illustrated, apparently, I thought Sports Illustrated like went away, but they're still doing the swimsuit issue. So Suni and Jordan Childs have both done their shoots for Sports Illustrated. So good for them. Stoked for them. Former UCLA coach. Remember Autumn Grable? She was a UCLA coach the last 2 seasons, I think. So she has autoimmune hepatitis and has dealt with health issues for a long time. Her husband, Kyle, was coaching at UCLA too, and now he's at Iowa. And Autumn is only 36, and she needs a new liver. So she has had this autoimmune hepatitis since she was 12 and now needs a liver. So this is very serious. So if you want to learn more about this and how to help, if you have a liver to donate, then we'll put up a link in the show notes to that. Murakami Mai is now the head developmental coach of the Japanese women's program. Finally.
It's all going to be good now. It's all going to be great. We're ready. We're ready for this.
Everything's right. The floor routines we're going to get now, the performance quality we're going to get. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Mai Murakami was also an actor in her career, and she did like commercials as a kid or some stage stuff. Just always the best performance quality. So she's in the stage circle.
She will teach them perseverance because she was snubbed as a like new senior again and again. And then she was like, "Oh, I'm the best one you've ever had. Here's a secret. By the way, I'm the best female gymnast Japan's ever produced.
Put me on the team." And she made it, and she's fantastic. Japan's men's artistic team was named the best male team in individual sports of the Paris 2024 Olympics by the Association of National Olympic Committees after winning gold this summer.
How do you win best male team in an individual sport? Gymnastics, because of gymnastics reasons.
You win the most medals as a country.
Okay.
That's the team.
You're individual because you're an individual.
Your people.
Team.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a word for the ridiculousness of gymnastics.
See, but it's if it was swimming and they had won a bunch of swimming, they would win because they have more medals. It's not even fair. It should be the percentage of medals available that you win. Well,
they won. They beat swimming. They beat any swimming team. So clearly they're taking that into account.
I just like to use any opportunity to point out that swimming has too many medals, and it's not. and they should never be ranking as like so-and-so has the most medals. Yeah, well, if you give out 100% more medals than gymnastics, then obviously someone other than Simone's going to win them. She's beat that guy now, right? Hasn't she beat what's his butt?
No.
Michael
Michael
Phelps.
Phelps? Michael Phelps has 975 Olympic medals.
But by percentage, I need to know by
Oh.
percentage of
Percentage
medals
of
available.
Olympics attended or medals
Well,
available. Okay.
not. I guess probably not Olympics. Actually, she won't. But total medals over World Championships and Olympics.
I think we have probably listeners who would be very interested in doing that deep dive and talking about it on a behind the scenes.
I think so too. And maybe sending us a spreadsheet that you just created while we were talking about and put it together for us. You know, I don't think about this until the minute it comes up and like, this is the kind of research we could do beforehand. But well, this is a good one to do.
We weren't thinking about it.
No, it just came up. GymCastic@gmail.com if you'd like to send in your spreadsheet. Also, the Phelps was in the 5 Olympics and has 28 Olympic medals, 23 gold.
Yeah, swimming has too many medals.
Yeah, way too many. Way, way, way too many. It's ridiculous. I mean, really, they should cut.
Gymnastics would need like bars, like various lengths of bars routines, like 3 different lengths. So one's just releases, one's just pirouettes, and then you can equal swimming for your like 100-meter breaststroke, 200-meter breaststroke, 400-meter. Like, shut up, swimming.
In 2000, Phelps won 15. This is why we have a live fact checker here.
No, he was 15 years old in 2000.
He was 15, which Simone couldn't do in 2016. Oh, yeah. They're allowed to compete earlier in the swimming, too? Oh, my God.
Well, you could compete at 15 in gymnastics if you were
as long as you turn 16 in the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simone was 19. She never competed as a child like he did. Had she competed as a child, then obviously she would have beat everyone.
She wasn't ready yet, and that's part of the lesson.
And that's right.
That Simone at 14 and 15 was not a world beater. And that's like part of the good lesson of her coaching development.
And you can all read about that in the new book.
See, look at my segue.
We weren't even planning this. The Balance. My Years Coaching Simone Biles by Amy Borman with Steve Cooper, who's also our fact checker, and married to me. Forward by Simone Biles. This book has been, they started writing this book 4 or 5 years ago. So it has been a long time in the making, 5 years ago. And it is coming out. You can pre-order it now and on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy books. And there's also an afterword about some Paris Olympic observations. And there's some Tokyo stuff in there too. So it's fascinating. All of your questions will be answered in the book. But the conclusion is swimming has too many medals. So Christian Gallardo is out in Canada. Gallardo is no longer with Gymnastics Canada. The women's program manager, Jenny. It's Jenny. I'm sorry, Jenny. Jenny True is currently acting as a national team director. Gym Canada has not shared their plan for a replacement structure.
So everything's still going great in Canada's elite program.
They need to get it together. Honestly, like
Ellie deserves better. She
does. Switching. I mean, her coach was basically acting director for forever. And then anyway. Oh, Canada. So I want to talk a little bit about Spencer's favorite subject, which is politics.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah.
I'll sit back. Jessica, you go. I didn't get into this for the politics talk. I get into this to talk about National Signing Day. Not my purview.
Basically, since we last had, we've just come back after, we had 2 weeks of episodes while we were on vacation that we had done pre-election. And the last time that Donald Trump was president in his first term, I regularly went off on political rants. And Yeah, which I think is important because I feel like preserving democracy and believing in the rule of law, no matter who you voted for, this is the fundamental thing that we're supposed to all agree on as Americans. I think it was very cathartic for me and for some of our listeners. It put some people off, and we don't want to alienate people. And I'm not saying we're changing our views. We're not going to talk about things. No, what I'm saying is,
I love alienating people personally.
I think all of that is important. I just don't think that it had any effect except for yelling about things that most people already agreed with. And mostly as a gymnastics community, also who has seen the effects of a serial sexual predator being given a lot of power, the problems with that, and the need for a disbursement of power, more democracy, more transparency. Like, we get those principles if you're a GymCastic listener. So I want to try to find a way to kind of bring people together and start focusing on how the politics of the United States directly and indirectly impacts this sport very specifically, because there are real important examples of what's at stake if the plans that Trump has are actually executed. For example, Trump and the people that he plans to put into office have openly and repeatedly discussed dismantling the Department of Education. And, some people might be like, I hated high school like I did. Let's dismantle the Department of Education. So why should you, as a gymnastics fan, care about that? Why could it impact your love of signing day, Spencer?
Oh, I know.
Let's
Title
talk
IX is very
about
important to my life.
it. Is very Title IX is basically why Spencer was essentially born when Title IX passed. He just sprang forth from Title IX's brain like Athena.
I'm younger than Title IX, by the way.
He
I'm
is.
just gonna put that out.
So Title IX is overseen by the Office of Civil Rights, which is under the Department of Education. So Title IX is responsible for the regulations that prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. There's even a movie with that title, which everyone should watch. And discrimination on basis of sex, it prohibits in any educational program or activity that receives federal assistance. So what does that mean specifically? So I don't want to deep dive into everything, but basically the Department of Education,
the invention of women in the early 80s by
right.
Title IX. Yeah.
But the Department of Education, that didn't even exist before, and it was invented in order to, like, as a reaction to, you guys, I know historians, you don't have to write in about this, but I'm very just generalizing. After the civil rights movement, because of segregation and money and everything else, there was a huge disparity in education and resources in schools. The Department of Education was created in order to try to make the educational opportunities equal with a federal standard, federal funding, and to make sure discrimination wasn't happening that impacted the access to education of all citizens. And then we got Title IX, which we talk about all the time. And Title IX signed into law by Nixon. You guys may think, like, are you praising a Republican? Yes, this is one of the several good things that Nixon did during his presidency.
Wow.
Several, yes, there's more than that. I think, did we get the EPA or something about the environment? Yeah, the EPA we got under Nixon too, which is super important because people used to just drive their old trucks into rivers. I'm not making that up. But Title IX is the reason that there also in sports has to be equal opportunity. So if you have a football team with 700 people on it, you have to have an opportunity for 700 women to also be able to play the sports. So
Clemson Gymnastics.
We would probably not have Clemson Gymnastics, one of the newest, brightest, boldest, most amazing gyms in there with gym palaces.
Wildest leotards.
Craziest leotards, make an impact. But like Georgia, then Michigan, then LSU having a gymnastics palace, we have Clemson Gymnastics with their gymnastics palace in 2021 to maintain equality compliance. They announced under Title IX, they had to add women's sports. They added 2 teams, gymnastics and lacrosse. This is where we have direct impact on gymnastics at the federal level, and federal regulation, federal funding, people being afraid of their budgets being cut, and schools being concerned about making sure that they have an equal opportunity. This is one of the ways that it plays out. The other ways that Title IX is super important in gymnastics is there's a huge abuse problem in all sports, everywhere, as there is an abuse problem anywhere there's a vulnerable population. Without the funds and enforcement of equal opportunity, it could impact the oversight on athlete welfare. So Title IX institutions have an obligation to address complaints of sexual harassment and misconduct. This applies regardless of the employment status of the accused. So someone can be a coach and then leave, or someone can be a professor and then leave, or an athlete can be perpetrating abuse and then go to another school. But without the Title IX office there to investigate, then these things can be swept under the rug, go away. No one has an opportunity to have it addressed unless it reaches the criminal level. And we all know how reluctant people are to come forward to go to the police to make a complaint to the police. And how hard it is to get anything. This is why we have like Safe Sport. It doesn't have to reach the criminal level to be addressed. Title IX investigations are so important, and they're one of the only ways that you can address an environmental problem, a failure of an institution in terms of the welfare of athletes and of, women and men at a school, to make sure that they are safe. Besides determining like if someone actually was abusive or whatever, it can help prevent future abuse by looking into was there an environment that contributed to this? Is there a pattern of misconduct, and how did that happen? Do we need to change policies and practices? Do we need to do more education to make sure that something like this doesn't happen? Those are all the things that are important in Title IX investigations. Also, immigration. Beyond Title IX, immigration is another big talking point of Trump, like we just talked about. And one of the reasons that I love college gymnastics, and I always pitch people, if you like our coverage, if you just showed up for our coverage of the Olympics, you're going to love our coverage of NCAA gymnastics, because this is where you get to watch your favorite elites from around the world compete not twice a year, but 14 times in 4 months. It's the best time of the year. It's so great. And you get to see beautiful gymnastics. It's the closest thing we have to an international gymnastics league is NCAA gymnastics. So more stringent immigration policies could possibly limit the ability of our favorite international Swedes to come and compete, and British to come compete in the United States. And in terms of culture and safety, which is one of the main things that it's one of the reasons I started the podcast in the first place, is like, we need to be covering gymnastics like any other sport would be covered, and actually talking about the problems in the sport in order to have more transparency, and then you get cultural change. And, Trump has nominated Matt Gaetz, who's a GOP congressman who's been accused of sexual assault of a minor and accused of sex trafficking. If he's appointed, he will be the top law enforcement officer in the country. Gaetz has also been accused of obstructing justice while he's been investigated. So, these are things that could affect the culture that trickles down from the top about what is investigated. We saw a cultural problem at the FBI when they totally messed up and didn't take seriously the 17th or 18th reports, but when it finally made it to the FBI level, the Detroit office messed it up and didn't take it seriously. And then it took another year for the LA office to pick it up of the FBI. And then things actually started to happen. So culture change matters when you're talking about how it affects gymnasts and how it affects culture crimes that have gone unpunished for years being punished. Also, FOIA. So this is the Freedom of Information Act. When I was little, this didn't exist. And I remember when it passed, it was a big deal when this passed. And I remember because my dad was in military intelligence, we were like, can we actually see your record now and like see where you like how much, if you're a spy, will they release? So we actually like made a call, and back then FOIA was not was not enforced. So literally made a call and then nothing happened. But then that changed because later under Obama, it was actually enforced. And now, all the agencies have their own FOIA department, and anyone that gets the federal funding has a FOIA department. So they actually answer the phone now. They actually will tell you, we can get documents to you in this amount of time. It's totally different than it was in the olden days. In the olden days, I would talk about, from being a law librarian who did this professionally for years, it used to be that I would call and make a FOIA request and maybe I'd hear back, and there was no deadline they had to meet. It was like, well, you just ask for information and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Then, and when Obama came into office, I was like, oh my God, someone answers the line now. I get responses back from the FOIA email address the same day. They actually meet the deadline they tell me. It was shocking to me. It was like something I always took for granted as an American, that like, well, this exists, but like, will anyone deliver on giving you on the transparency of handing over documents redacted or not? And then it changed. And I didn't realize I was used to something that was unacceptable until it changed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when people hire contractors in the US and they're like, yeah, it's just kind of a mess. In other countries, it's not like that. And we're just used to it. So anyway, also contractors are great. Don't send in your emails. I'm just using an example.
FOIA is under the Office of Informational Policy.
Right.
Which is a DOJ department.
Right.
Which
and so also,
what you were saying.
We have GymCastic, and every other journalistic agency has relied on FOIA requests to do the kind of reporting that we've done here, to expose some of the crimes that we have exposed over the years. This is part of a tool that we have used that is available to all Americans, regardless if you're a journalist or not, to get answers. And if Gates is ahead of the Department of Justice, then this might affect compliance with FOIA requests. If we have someone in the department who was obstructing justice in their own investigation, are they going to do that for their friends? Because this is what Trump says he wants to do. So basically, what I'm saying is, I'm explaining all of this to try to say, I'm going to try to do less political rants, because I feel like I know that people also consider this their like safe space to be out of politics and just enjoy gymnastics. But I also think that one of our responsibilities as journalists in this space is to point out how leadership and the state of democracy directly affects gymnastics. Because all of these things matter, just like how the FBI handled and how many in law enforcement handled the Nassar investigation affected how long it took to put him in prison. And so when those things come up, I will point them out, and we will discuss them very specifically, and the principles behind why we have access to these things and how they affect things in the larger scope. But I'm just like trying to really take a different approach this time. Not trying to persuade, trying to point out facts, basically. And I'm trying to belittle anyone. I'm trying to inform. And that is part of our jobs here. Entertain, first of all, and inform. What? Entertainment, number one. Very important. And we talked about this a little more on Behind the Scenes this week, which is the show we do where we talk about things we don't talk about in public. So if you want to hear that, we do it every Friday at noon Pacific. And it's very fun. And you guys can watch live, or you can add it to your favorite podcast player and listen to it later. We answer your questions. I told lots of stories about vacation, and yeah, we had and we talked about some of the latest news. You know what we didn't talk about yet, though? We didn't talk about Jordan Child's appearance on the Today Morning America something.
Okay, sounds like you have a huge knowledge about it. You're up to speed to talk about it.
So let's talk about that next week.
Okay.
But she did talk about the bronze medal debacle. And we are still following the bronze medal debacle because, of course, Anna Barbosu now officially is the bronze medalist. But there are 2 challenges to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, allegedly 2 challenges, but 2 on behalf of Jordan to make her case, and then 1 allegedly on behalf of Sabrina Voinea, that's also in front of the Swiss Supreme Court, trying to overturn this decision. Because it's normal for a country to try to take away their own gymnast medal with another gymnast, giving the other gymnast the medal. Oh, Romania. Yeah. So, but Jordan was on the Today Show with Hoda. So we can talk about that. And if you've watched it, we can talk about it on behind the scenes, you guys, because feelings. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you on behind the scenes on Friday at noon Pacific. And until then, remember to buy your tickets for the live show in Portland with Mohini Bhardwaj. It's going to be so fun, you guys. Mohini has stories, you guys. And they're on sale now at GymCastic.com. Remember, you can come in person or get them a virtual ticket. And if you volunteered, we'll get in touch with you this week. And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on Friday for Behind the Scenes. Thanks for listening. Remember to take off on gay, split on rights. Thanks for listening.